What it is, cuckwads, it's your boy the Hater, and this video was inspired by an impromptu opportunity that I had to watch NXT last night. I was just up late, and I was like, I need something to watch to kill the time a little bit because I was waiting to send an email. But anyways, I watched NXT, right? Now, obviously, I didn't watch all of it because ain't nobody got time to see what fucking Julia's doing, you know? I picked and chose, cucks. But what I saw, I liked. You know, finally, for the first time, there's something good coming out of WWE. However, I quickly realized that all the good things come from the TNA side of the equation. You understand me? So first, all right, the show starts out and there's a clear presence of TNA within the show, right? It's all over the place. This was one of those shows, you know? We have a few matches that I skipped. Notable moments are Stephanie Vaquer. I skipped her match with Carmen Petrovic. I will say they're both good-looking women at least, so that's a step in the right direction. But for some reason, that jobber, Ashanti Viadonis, was in ringside dressed like Zorro. You know what I mean? Just get over it. This guy's never going to make it. He's literally just stealing money from the company at this point. You know what I mean? Like, if this was the government, Elon would have fired his ass already. But anyways, that's neither here nor there, right? Then later on, we get a match between Lexus King, who is extremely underrated. He needs to lose about 15, 20 pounds because he's getting a little chubby. But he's just, I've always liked him. Even in AEW, Brian Pillman Jr., I always thought this guy was WWE bound. You can go look at my previous videos. And he was wrestling Moose. Now, Moose has to be, easily in the top 3 haters' favorite wrestlers right now, right? He might be the best current wrestler, you know? There's just something about Moose. First of all, he looks the part completely, right? This guy just looks great. He's just jacked. He's enormous. He's got an awesome name, Moose, right? He has not the best spear traditionally, but he has the most entertaining spear, right? Because when he does the spear, which is called the no jackhammer needed, which shows that he understands what wrestling is fundamentally, he spears the guy and then does a front flip to sell his own spear, right? It feels, even though it probably hurts the same or less than other spears, it just feels more devastating, you know? And that's exactly what wrestling is. You do a move that looks like it hurts, but in fact doesn't hurt more than any other move. So Moose versus Lexus King for Moose's X Division title. Moose as X Division champion is brilliant, right? Because he's not your traditional X Division guy. They're going for that Samoa Joe X Division run type of thing, where he's having a dominant run. And Moose is just, he's a soldier. I mean, he's stuck with TNA during the worst years. And now that TNA is bouncing back a little bit, Moose deserves all the accolades. You know what I mean? The match was great. Lexus King did a lot of cool moves. He did his finisher. Moose kicked out. He hit the no jackhammer needed. And he pinned Lexus King, which is obviously the right outcome. In addition, I want to highlight one other thing. Moose is called Moose, right? Long gone are the days where people have cool monikers or cool names. I texted one of my best friends yesterday and I told him, you know what's a great name, a great pseudonym? The Big Show, right? That's just a great name. You know, when you hear it's going to be The Rock versus The Big Show, you're like, oh, what are these, gods? Or are they people, right? When you hear that it's going to be Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor, you're like, what are these, nerds or geeks? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Nobody is enticed by a person named Seth Rollins or Finn Balor. Finn Balor sounds like Huckleberry Finn, which sounds like a child that would hang out with Tom Sawyer, painting fences and all that other shit, and fighting bugs. Nobody has time for this, right? Moose is a great name because you hear Moose and you think of some type of person, right? Kind of like Rhino, right? Remember Rhino? Same philosophy, right? You're like, all right, obviously this guy's not a rhino, but I understand why he's called Rhino, right? By looking at him like, oh, this guy he does a gourd, that makes perfect sense. Same thing with Moose, right? Moose understands wrestling, and for that reason, I like the fact that he was featured on NXT. Now, another thing is apparently he's good friends with Tessa Blanchard, and the neckbeard community has decided that Tessa Blanchard isn't cool because Apparently, there were allegations of bullying and racism. The hater doesn't care about any of that because the hater does not take his social cues from Tessa Blanchard, right? Thereby, the fact that Moose stuck up for her also is irrelevant. If anything, it shows the kind of man Moose is. The kind of guy that he is, which is the kind of guy you want. Someone that sticks up for their friends. This is a lost art. A lot of people are now really quick to betray each other. They're like, oh, this person said this, I'm going to distance myself. Shut the fuck up. Then you ain't a real friend. What do I need you for? So we can go get a burrito together? No, I need you when I need you. And if you ain't there when I need you, then I don't give a fuck. So anyways, Moose, great. You know, Obafemi comes out. You know, I thoroughly enjoyed this interaction. Obafemi, you know, I'm not saying I'm changing my mind on him, but the reality is he is from Nigeria. And I know Nigerians, a lot of them speak English, so this is not necessarily like the biggest accolade. But when you compare him to the likes of Nakamura and Andrade, who are this close to being on the haters' banned list, right? At least he comes out and he can cut a promo. Yeah, he's not The Rock, but he's got an accent and it fits him well. He plays his role well, like this leader of the kingdom thing, you know? Now, I personally believe that Obafemi is inferior to Moose by every conceivable metric. You know, in every way, he's inferior to Moose. So in my opinion, Moose should win. The only thing that he has on Moose is that he's younger, you know, which is obviously a big deal. But obviously, he's going to beat Moose, you know. That's my criticism of, like, this partnership. It's like, it's clear who's going to beat who based on what's on the line, right? More on that a little bit later. So this match is set up for next week. Not even for, like a PLE. It's a straight up, like a random NXT, I think, right? Then later on, there's a few other notable moments. Let's get through the bullshit one first so we can get to the good one. The debut of Ricky Saints. It's Ricky Saints, I believe, and Javon Evans versus All Ego, Ethan Page, and somebody else, Wesley, right? Now, here's the thing, right? A couple of things. Number one, Javon Evans, I like the kid, you know? I'm very high on Javon Evans. I'm very bullish on him because for one fundamental reason. Despite the fact that he's this flippy-dippy wrestler, he's a bigger guy, right? And in fact, he looked, to me, noticeably more muscular than last time I saw him, or more lean or something, right? He is growing into his role, you know? So if he's someone that's like 6'2", or whatever he is, right? He seems tall. Maybe he was surrounded by midgets. That's a possibility too, because Ricky Starks was there, you know? But if he is tall, then that's good. That's a good sign. You know, he has the opportunity to do cool things. Now, we have Ricky Saints. Now, Ricky Starks, right? Like, he is what he is, you know what I mean? He is a perfectly acceptable, middle-of-the-line guy, you know? My only issue with him is that this idea that somehow he's supposed to be this, like, big deal, you know what I mean? He was a mid-carder in AEW, and he's effectively a mid-carder here as well, you know? He's gonna go for the world title, for the NXT title at some point, but nobody cares about this title. The title's completely meaningless, you know? It's just as valuable as a North America title or the Heritage Cup. Nobody actually cares about it. But, the match was decent. He still has the Rochambeau as a finisher, which I think is an excellent finisher. And he pinned Wesley in the tag team match, right? Then we've got the highlight of the night easily. First of all, I want to give some special credit to, what are their name? Miles something and Tavion Heights, right? Tavion Heights and the Miles guy, they got something there, right? They are these big, strong-looking motherfucks, right? And they can both do cool things. They had this double team. It's like a do-si-do clothesline. I really enjoyed it. These guys are just like hard-hitting motherfucks. They remind me of Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin with their like wrestler gimmick, but they're like bigger, you know? They're bigger and stronger. They're probably not as good as wrestlers, but they're bigger and stronger, and that's what matters here, you know what I mean? So with that being said, I really enjoyed them being in this match. But obviously, the real highlight of the night, and the reason why I even tuned into NXT instead of watching some other bullshit, was because the Hardy Boys came back to NXT. This is an insane return, right? Now, obviously, the Hardy Boys belong on the big time, but let's be real. If we look at every tag team champion that we have right now, I don't even know who it is in AEW anymore. I'm going to have to look that up. Last I checked, it was Private Party, but I don't know, and quite frankly, I couldn't give a rat's ass. But if we exclude that and we look at WWE, we've got Nathan Frazier and Axiom. More on them in a little bit. Then we've got DIY, I believe. And then we've got the War Raiders, or whatever the fuck they're called now. You know, like, of these tag teams, the Hardy Boys are better than all of them combined. If you take the combination and you multiply it by about 10,000, the Hardy Boys are still better, right? So we live in a world where DIY is up in the card, theoretically at least, right? higher than the Hardy Boys. But if the Hardy Boys were to wrestle DIY, DIY would be the vast underdogs, right? The Hardy Boys legitimately are one of the best tag teams of all time. For me, it's still the Dudleys, but it's getting close. If the Hardys surpass the Dudleys in number of title reigns, then it's a toss-up, right? It's a toss-up. Like, I like the Dudleys, but I also really, really like the Hardys. They were obviously my favorite tag team when I was small, right? So the Hardy Boys are out there. They haven't missed a beat. Now, obviously, they're not wrestling the same exact way in the sense that they're not doing, like, crazy moves, but they can do the moves that they normally do. Like, maybe you can't put them in a ladder match and have them perform as well as they did in 1999 or 2000. But in a regular match, you don't get the impression that these guys are like old bastards. They did their moves. They even have a new move, the plot twist, which I like. It's basically Jeff Hardy does a twist of fate stunner type thing. The opponent pops back and Matt Hardy does like an inverted neck breaker kind of thing. You know what I mean? Great move. It's kind of like, I think one of their new finishers, but it didn't work because like the pin was broken up, and then obviously you knew that was going to happen because the Hardys didn't come here to win with that. The Hardys came here to hit them with a twist of fate and a swanton, which Jeff did perfectly. Corey Graves put it over well. Basically, he was like, a lot of people imitate this move, but Jeff Hardy is him, right? And it's as simple as that. There is a level of difference. They are a world above Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy, who honestly, in my opinion, both have had individual Hall of Fame careers, despite the fact that they should be in the Hall of Fame as the Hardy Boys, right? It's just like them and Christian, Like, they deserve to be in the Hall of Fame individually. The Dudley Boys also deserve that, but, only if you consider the TNA stuff. But even in WWE, Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy have had Hall of Fame careers. Like I keep saying, if Godfather and Rikishi are in, then there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy need to be in, right? It's not even close. So like Matt Hardy is like 100 times better than Godfather and Rikishi in terms of like what he's done for the business and what he's done for WWE. But anyways, that's not even controversial. I think everybody knows the Hardys are going to go into the Hall of Fame sooner rather than later. But after the match, Fraxium, which is Frazier and Axiom, they come out and they cut a promo basically saying like, we're going to find out who the best tag team is. It's like this isn't even, like, this is just ridiculous, you know what I mean? Like, Axiom and Nathan Frazier, like, after this, Axiom is going to be a jobber, and Nathan Frazier is going to have, like a fucking, Justin Gabriel, is that his name, Justin Gabriel? Justin Gabriel type push. Like, none of these guys are going to be anything special, whereas the Hardy Boys are, like, multiple-time champions, right? A million-time tag team champions. It's not even close. It's a ridiculous comparison, and quite frankly, it just paints the fans as being stupid. But the real point that I wanted to make in this video, right, is not so much the NXT review, because I enjoyed it, but the point I want to make is the difference between TNA and WWE in terms of like type of wrestlers that they have. So in TNA, and I understand this represents the best of TNA, right? We've got the Hardys and Moose, right? Like in WWE and NXT, we have Ricky Saints, Nathan Frazier, Axiom, and Wesley, who I actually like. But you understand what I'm saying. There is a clear disparity. In terms of the indies, TNA has the best wrestlers, right? Ricky Starks is a nobody, I put him on the same level as fucking, what's-his-face, as Eddie Kingston, in the sense that, like, they're both these indie darlings that are overrated and they don't really do anything, Like, Ricky Starks doesn't excel at anything. Like, he's not like, he's basically like Ricochet, except without all the athleticism, you know what I mean? Ricky Starks is just whatever. Like, he's not special, Moose is special. The Hardys obviously are special, right? The Hardy Boys need to have one final WWE run. If somehow they can get Edge and Christian back and pull out the Dudleys pull out Bubba Ray from LFG and Devon from his YouTube channel, and just do like one, I don't know. I can only dream, right? TLC, the final TLC. They're going to have to like shorten their lives by about 10 years each, but it might be awesome. So, it is what it is. But the point is, TNA is not getting anything out of this partnership because TNA is giving WWE, NXT I should say, Moose and the Hardy Boys. And what do they get instead? Well, Miles Bourne, there it is, Miles Bourne, and Tavion Heights, who are prospects, but they are prospects, right? They get to go and wrestle in like TNA. Like, nobody cares about these guys, I don't want to see them in NXT or TNA, even though they do have, some potential. That's not the point. The point is, like, they're not going to send in, like, Trick Williams or, I mean, to be fair, like, what's the difference, right? Like, Trick Williams, Eddie Thorpe, Obafemi, it's like they're on the same level as Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights. It's not like they're any better. They're all rookie jabrones. But the facts remain, right? During the match, I will say this, right? I thought to myself, Matt and Jeff are almost 50. Matt might be 50. Jeff is in his late 40s, right? And they're wrestling these two guys who I like I said, right? But these guys are like 28, you know? Like, Javon Evans is young, but, you know, everybody else, like Ricky Starks is in his 30s. Obafemi is like 27 probably at this point, maybe 26 still. And then you have also, like, a lot of people, like I said, in their late 20s. Like, Trick Williams is 30. And it's like, just think about the difference, right? When Matt and Jeff Hardy were in their 30s, they were already legends. They were already Hall of Famers. Jeff Hardy, I think, was already a world champion. He definitely was a multiple-time Intercontinental champion by that point, right? And Matt Hardy was massively over, right? So this is the difference, you know what I mean? I'm looking at the Hardy Boys, you know, and I'm thinking like, man, Tavion Heights, because I Googled him, that's why I know his name, right? Tavion Heights, this guy is like, he was born in 97, you know? Like, when the Hardy Boys had their ladder match with Edge and Christian, this motherfucker was either 1 or 2 years old. And since then, he's turned 28, you know? And the Hardy Boys, like, have had, like, 10 of his careers. You know what I mean? Like, the Hardy Boys debuted in WWE, not in the developmental, in WWE in their teens. They were, like, 18, like, 19, like, Jeff Hardy, or Matt Hardy might have been, like, early 20s. Jeff Hardy was in his teens, you know? And they were already over. They became legends, you know? Now, I understand I'm comparing these people to legends. Like, nobody serious thinks that Obafemi will ever be, like, bigger than Jeff Hardy, right? That's a really high bar. Very few wrestlers are bigger than Jeff Hardy. But you understand what I'm getting at, right? It's like, you can't be in NXT and be in your mid-30s, you know? Like, what is the career aspiration for Ethan Page and for, you know, Ricky Saints? What are they going to do? They're going to go to the main roster when they're 38? You know, they're going to have Bobby Roode careers. Like, think about that. Just think about that. If Bobby Roode, who's better, obviously, than everyone that I just mentioned, except for the Hardys, like, Bobby Roode is better than Obafemi. He's better than Ricky Saints. He's better than Javon Evans, better than Trick Williams, better than Ethan Page, better than Fraxium. He's better than all those guys. And this guy couldn't do it in his 30s, right? If Bobby Roode can't do it, what fucking hope do you think Ricky Starks has on the main roster? He doesn't have any of the attributes of Bobby Roode. He's not as good looking. He's not in as good of a shape, right? He's not as charismatic. He's not as good on the mic. He literally is inferior to someone like Bobby Roode at every possible level, you know? And despite this, Bobby Roode didn't make it. I mean, he had some good runs, but people thought Bobby Roode was going to be this big deal, you know? So did I. I'm like, oh, Bobby Roode, finally. I'm like, we finally have like a good, TNA guy joining, you know? But in my opinion, the thing that I want to talk about as well is this partnership, you know? I understand that TNA is being presented as the equivalent of NXT. But in my opinion, the potential is much greater, you know? And that's going to be something that I say in another video, you know? And I'm not saying we have to do this, like, you know, TNA invasion storyline, but the facts are that would be pretty fun. So that being said, motherfuckers, I really enjoyed this. I think there's a lot of potential in TNA and also this partnership. But fundamentally, I think the main point here is this. There is an imbalance, right? TNA is not getting the exposure they thought they'd get. And WWE is like, you know, is getting, in my opinion, a lot. Because, quite frankly, you know what I mean? Like, the show was good enough for me to want to watch whenever the fuck it happens next week. Because we're going to see the Hardys again, and we're going to see Moose again. I could give a shit that Moose is wrestling Obafemi. I don't care if he wrestles Ricky Saints, Fraxium, it doesn't matter to me, right? Same thing with the Hardys. I don't care who they wrestle. I'm going to watch for Moose and the Hardys. You know? Nobody is going to watch TNA because, like, you know, Javon Evans is there. Or because Eddie Thorpe decided to show up. Nobody cares about Eddie Thorpe. And that's the problem, right? There needs to be some balance. And that's why I'm going to do I'm not going to do like a fantasy booking of an invasion angle, but there is something there, you know? And there's also other opportunities that need to be explored. Now, that being said, take care of yourselves, motherfucks.